All right, welcome back to the Elias Macko Show. We're going to start the hour talking about ultra-processed food. Now, according to the Heart and Stroke Foundation, 4 out of 10 deaths due to heart and stroke in Canada are caused by ultra-processed food. Now, recently, the U.S. Health Secretary, Robert Kennedy Jr., calls ultra-processed food poison. And I'm thinking about this, ultra-processed food isn't new. It's been around for a long time. So can it be as dangerous as some would say, some statistics would lead you to believe? Let's try and find out. Dr. Joe Schwarcz, the host of the Dr. Joe Show, right here on CJAD. He's on the line. Hi, Dr. Joe. How you doing?
Hi.
First things first, I guess we got to go into the history of ultra-processed food. This has been around for quite some time. This isn't something new.
Of course, and it's also a question, of how you define ultra-processed food. Which is not so easy to define because food processing involves many different modalities. I mean, freezing food is a processing technology. If you add preservatives to food, that's a processing technology. So I think it's always a mistake to lump everything into one sort of category. But as you say, these processed foods, of course, have been around for a long time. I mean, people will remember TV dinners when they first came out, right? Swanson TV dinner, which is obviously highly processed food. The cereals that were introduced in the early 1900s by Kellogg's. Many of those are, highly processed foods. What we really need to do is look at the overall diet, not how something is processed, but what the final result is. What is the fat content? What is the sugar content? What is the salt content? What do the studies say about these foods? But to just lump everything together into, ultra processes being the devils is not right. And of course, this is what Kennedy is doing. Now, I think Kennedy, with some things, is right. I mean, even a blind squirrel sometimes finds an acorn. That's the expression I like to use. And I mean, he some of his ideas about improving the diet are fine. Although I think, the emphasis on food dyes is just misplaced. This is not such an important thing. There are many more important things in improving our diet. Incidentally, let me alert all listeners to a program that just came out on Frontline PBS, which you can find on YouTube. A 2-hour documentary on RFK Jr. I think everyone should watch this. If they're interested in this whole business of processed foods and everything else that Kennedy is into in terms of his anti-vax, this is 2 hours. And after that, you're not going to say that this is 2 hours that I will never recover, as we often say with things.
A worthwhile 2 hours.
Absolutely. It's a great investment, and you see that this man has absolutely no business being in the position that he's in. When you see his background and you see the kind of things that he's been involved in, as being a heroin addict, as being a sex addict, as being into every possible conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
So this is really
that poor bear in Central Park. I think it was a bear. Okay, I want to bring you back to the ultra processed food stuff, and I don't want to. I don't know if I'm ambivalent on the subject, but I don't want to be a cheerleader for ultra processed food.
Absolutely not.
But I imagine there's also a case to say, hey, you know what? Ultra processed food, shelf stable, can last forever. I bet you there's a case that ultra processed food has saved lives in certain ways. But how do you approach it here? And just
I obviously, because of what I do, I do pay a lot of attention to my diet, and I can tell you that I do eat some ultra processed foods. For example, I'm not a spokesperson for Fiber One cereal, but I eat Fiber One cereal.
Yeah.
It would categorically certainly be an ultra-processed food because it's got all kinds of additives. However, what I look at is that it has a high fiber content, it's got significant protein, it has very low sugar, it has virtually no fat. I think it's a perfectly good food to eat. And also, there is a frozen vegetarian lasagna that I buy. And again, when you look at the list of additives,
Yeah.
it will be an arm long. But also, when I look at the nutritional value, I see that it's very low in salt, it's low in fat, it's got protein, it's perfectly good, and it's easy to make. So you can't dump, on all of the processed foods. For example, also, we put folic acid into our cereals. That is, of course, processing, but that prevents neural tube defects in pregnant women. We fortify our foods with vitamin B12 because a lot of people who exclude animal products from their diet are low in vitamin B12. So, there are a lot of processed foods that should not be construed as being villains. As I like to say, everything in science, once you scratch the surface, actually becomes more complicated.
Yeah,
and so you have to be aware of that, and it's always a mistake to paint everything with one a stroke of a brush. Now, certainly, there have been loads of studies about ultra-processed foods. When you do dietary surveys, they've done this in France, in the UK, and United States. And what you find is that people who have a diet high in ultra-processed foods indeed are more prone to heart disease, are more prone to cancer, are more prone to diabetes, are more prone to obesity. I mean, this is strong evidence. Now, exactly why that is the case is somewhat of a mystery. Does it have something to do with the processing itself? Is it, the emulsifiers, the preservatives that are in these foods? Or is it just the fact that these foods tend to be very palatable because they are high in fat, they are high in sugar, and the fat-sugar combination is very palatable.
They are formulated to make our taste buds just absolutely dance, right?
Absolutely. So there's no question that a diet high in ultra-processed foods is conducive to all kinds of health problems.
Can I ask you
why? I don't know. I think it is probably the sugar, the fat, and the salt that is in there. That's the issue.
And we're not stopping at 3 cookies. We're stopping at 20. Let me ask you, Dr. Joe, before I have to let you go, have ultra-processed foods changed over the years? And when I ask that question, I mean, the 1920 Oreo. Is it the same as the 2020 Oreo? And have we gone maybe off the deep end on how we formulate ultra-processed foods?
Yes, a good question. I should look into that to see whether the early Oreos are different from now. I can tell you that both of those are ultra-processed foods and should not be a big part of the diet. But yeah, I mean, we have learned a lot since then about exactly how to mix the ingredients to make them more palatable. And I think increasing the sugar content is one thing. I would think that there's more sugar now in the Oreos than there used to be. But that's a good question. I'll have to look into that one. Look, there's no question that if we have a diet that is mostly fruits, vegetables, and whole grains, it is better than a diet that is based on ultra-processed foods. But, this is no revelation. I mean, everyone knows that. And I think we have to emphasize the consuming of, the 5 to 7 servings of fruits and vegetables every day. That's, if anything, more important than talking about the ultra-processed foods. We have to kind of look at the whole diet, not the individual components. I always like to say that you can eat blueberries every morning, which, I like to do, and still have a terrible diet. Or you could could never eat blueberries and still have an exemplary diet.
Yeah.
And that's why, when people ask me, as they sometimes do, to look at their diet and kind of give an opinion on whether it's good or not, I always tell them, look, the only way we can do that is to keep a food diary. And for at least 2 weeks, you write down everything that you eat, including the amounts that you eat, which is very challenging. People don't remember exactly what they ate, and they are not very good at estimating amounts. When you ask them, well, how many grams of cheese did you eat? You get blank expressions.
Yeah, no idea. No idea.
And also what you have to remember is so much that we know about food intake and nutrition comes from such dietary surveys, which will, ask people, how many times during the last month have you eaten an avocado? Okay, you know what a difficult question that is.
Yeah.
Or, how many potato chips have you eaten? And that's why dietary surveys are very difficult to rely on.
Well, the answer to that question, Dr. Joe, on how many potato chips I've eaten is too many, far too many.
Yeah.
Dr. Joe, listen, I got to leave it there.
Okay, one last thing.
Yeah.
People not only don't remember what they ate, but they also will report that they ate things that they think they should have eaten instead of what they ate. Yeah. And I always use the line, there is more reported broccoli being eaten than the world is producing.
Broccoli, of course. Yeah. Dr. Joe, be well. We'll catch you on Sunday on your show, okay?
Okay, thanks, guys.
Dr. Joe Schwarcz, host of the Dr. Joe Show, and of course from the McGill Office for Science and Society.
I'm Dylan Playfair.
And I'm Tyler Smith.
We're putting loneliness in the penalty box by talking to some of our favorite athletes about the importance of friendship.
This is Bromance.
Bromance is brought to you by Charm Diamond Centers, proudly Canadian-owned and operated. Charm has been part of your love stories and bromances for over 50 years.
And you can find Bromance on the iHeartRadio network or wherever you get your podcasts.